Hi everyone, it's Jeff. Today I wanted to spend a few minutes sharing something that's always been very important to me in my time with ride sharing, and that is driver safety. This message is really more for Uber and Lyft, but I think it's important that I share how I approach this and some suggestions that I've had. So what you're looking at on the screen is something I sent to Sergio at Show Me the Money Club almost 3 years ago. I came up with 7 points that can really affect driver safety and would be more than lip service of Uber and Lyft, but certainly actionable things that can really help protect drivers. Before I go through this line by line, I do want to state, as a veteran of over 32,000 Uber and Lyft rides, 3,000 private client rides, 2,000 Spark deliveries, when Corner Shop was in business, 2,000 of those, I want to say that rideshare driving is extremely safe, even when you see the horrible few incidents on television. From a statistical standpoint, it is safer to drive Uber or Lyft than almost anything else. It's probably easier to hit Powerball than it would be for a driver to get assaulted, or even worse, driving a Lyft or Uber. And if you do the numbers, I'm sure you'll find out that I am correct. So the first bullet point, and I'm going to read through it, every rider should have their own account. Since the terms of service prohibits drivers from transporting unaccompanied minors, a government-issued ID should be required to open an account. That ID photo is what the driver should see on a full screen when they swipe that they arrived at the pickup location. If a guest ride is permitted, then the guest should be an account holder as well, so we can see their photo. This would hold true for medical transport as well. If the patient is not an account holder, then they would need to use real medical transport companies, period. Driver information should not be shared until we arrive at the pickup spot. There is no need for a rider to know my tag number or see a picture of my car until I have arrived. This would alleviate criminals looking for certain cars to carjack. Furthermore, my tag should never be shared. Ever. Too easy to find my home address for a criminal. They can issue every driver a decal with a number on it. That should be the way a rider can identify your vehicle. A security feature should be added for drivers who use Apple that would immediately warn you if a rider has left an AirTag behind. I'm sure they have the technology to do that, same as for Android users. In Florida, we have to wait 7 minutes after arrival on Uber and 5 minutes on Lyft before we can cancel and collect a fee. This is way too long. It should be a minute maximum. Riders should not be ordering cars until they are ready to go. Not only is this a security risk, but if you average 3 rides per hour, you're potentially waiting 21 minutes and 15 minutes respectively. On an 8-hour shift, that can cost you 8 rides. And finally, multiple stops should be required to be added prior to confirming a ride request. It should also appear in the upfront view so a driver can make a decision on whether to accept this offer. Now, these are things I think can really help protect drivers even more, yet the only thing we ever get from Uber and Lyft is lip service. And my example of that would be, if you can remember, when we were coming out of COVID in probably the beginning of 2021, when we had some vaccines and more people were using Uber and Lyft. Uber and Lyft made a big public announcement that they were following CDC guidelines to protect their drivers and requiring all riders to wear a mask. Well, 2 things happened. Unfortunately, this was all a publicity stunt because we were the ones who had to be the guards of whether somebody wore a mask. Even though the app told them they needed to wear a mask, we were the ones who had to confront them. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm looking to make a tip, the last thing I want to do is get into an argument with a passenger. So, other than always hearing them tell us, well, the last driver didn't make me wear a mask, or masks don't work, you're not a doctor, all we did was cancel. And then you got chastised for canceling. But furthermore, to prove it was just a ruse by Uber and Lyft, the minute the Supreme Court decided that the CDC could not mandate a mask policy, the next day, Uber and Lyft removed the mask policy. But the CDC guidelines didn't change, which was the reason that they used in the first place for asking riders to wear masks. It was just a publicity stunt. So now that you have this knowledge and my tips, I want to show you a ride I took today. And normally I would not take this ride, but I just thought it would point out the point I wanted to bring across in this video. So here goes. So I accepted a ride today in the morning, a short ride. You can see the photo. So this is the photo. Now this is a verified person, okay? Is that an appropriate photo? Maybe a better question would be to Lyft and Uber. If I put this as my profile photo, would I be able to be a driver using this photo? I think we all know the answer. So then I go to the pickup spot. And as I'm approaching the pickup spot, this is what I see. Now, we all know that if this was a ride for the account holder, you'd see a little yellow figure standing by the pickup location. So this was a guest ride. So now not only do I have a fictitious picture, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to pick somebody up who's not the account holder. Then I pick the person up, and as I pull up, it's a seedy hotel, and there's 2 people standing outside. I judged the situation. I thought I was in no danger, and the ride was for a female. So the female gets in the car, and this photo shows where she actually wanted to be dropped off. As you can tell, it was not the original drop-off location. And then she went ahead and told me that, she never tells the person her real drop-off location. So now let's put it all together. I picked up a ride with a fake photo of a verified customer, by the way. The ride was a guest ride. It was at a seedy hotel, and the woman says she doesn't like to give people her real address. What kind of work you think she was doing? Not that there's anything wrong with that. So again, we should not be put in these situations. The ride did go off without a hitch, but the bottom line is Uber and Lyft need to do better. Even though driving is safe, it should be 100% safe. They have the technology. How do we know they have the technology? Because every few hours, we have to take a selfie to prove it's us driving our car. So if it's that easy, then a passenger should have to take a photo of themselves before we start the ride. Once again, we all know Uber and Lyft are unbelievably disgusting companies, but they should do more to protect the driver. Thank you all for listening, and I look forward to your comments.